Hey y'all, it's Jen and welcome to my channel Ifers Inklings. Today's video is going to be a tag video. We're going to do the Monsterathon tag, but before we get started on that, be sure and check over there to make sure that if you were already subscribed to me or thought you were, that you are still subscribed. YouTube is doing its unsubscribe thing right now. If you're not already subscribed but enjoy this video, make sure you hit that red subscribe button before you leave today. Now, on with the intro. Hey guys, so this is a little different view than some of my normal videos. I'm almost always in front of my bookcases. Right now my couch is directly in front of my bookcase. Here, these are my red books over here, and it'll be like this until I can get some things unpacked and rearrange my living room. So I thought I would take advantage of it and sit comfortably on my couch and record this tag. So, with that said, I have my paper here that has all of the tag questions on it, and we are just going to dive into this. So this is the Monsterathon tag 2020. We've got the sub title of, or sub theme of, Where Monsters Hide. So that is going to be all of these. You can see kind of a stack of books over here that I'm going to be talking about. And then there are some books that I don't have that I will link the picture of on the screen. So let's get started. Prompt number 1 is The Whispering Woods, a book you haven't heard much about or that is underhyped. And that is going to be The Sandcastle Empire by Kayla Olson. This book was an Owlcrate book, so I know a lot of us got it, but I don't think many people have read or reviewed this. At least I haven't seen it. This is a YA dystopian book. This takes place in obviously a post-apocalyptic world, and what happens here is our main character Eden escapes from this almost prison system or prison-like compound, and she ends up on a boat going to this supposed island that has some treasure, and they can escape and be free or whatever. When they get to this island, it is this booby-trapped nightmare that they have to navigate. There's mazes, there's plants that will kill them, there's all kinds of things that they have to navigate, and then of course there's going to be a twist. But it is kind of billed as it says on here on the back, The Maze Runner meets Lost. It's a near future sci-fi thriller that has twists and turns all the way around into a heart-pounding end. So it really did. There were definitely elements that I would compare it to The Maze Runner with. And of course it takes place on an island. It was very interesting, very well paced, and I really enjoyed it. Of course, I really enjoy dystopia worlds anyway. All in all, I haven't really heard anybody talking about this, and I thought it was really good. I think I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. So definitely an underhyped book. The next prompt is The Lair of the Babadook, and this is a book that has LGBTQIA+ rep. And I know that this is kind of an easy cop-out. Everybody's probably recommending this book, but I wanted to go with as much of as kind of a spooky theme as possible with these books that I'm recommending. And this is the only one that has that kind of weird element to it. And that's Every Hearted Doorway. Really, any of the books in this series they have characters in here that are on the LGBTQIA plus spectrum, and they're all really good. They're short novellas, and they follow a group of kids who they come back from portal worlds. They had at one point they've gone through the portal doors, such as Narnia or Alice in Wonderland. I know there's another one that I'm not thinking about, but those types of worlds where they leave our world through a door and enter a different world. And this is the group of kids that have come back from those worlds and are just trying to acclimate back to the world that we know of as the normal world. And it's really good. I really enjoy these stories. They're easy, they're cute, some of them are nonsensical, some of them are logical, and I really like the different aspects of that. If you're looking to get into kind of a fantasy and a light fantasy world, that these would definitely qualify. And there are some worlds that are spookier than others. Some are like the world of the dead. The world that we experience in this book is Jack and Jill's world, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's kind of a spookier type world. So definitely a good one if you're looking for the vibe of the Monsterathon with the rep you're seeking. Now this next one is Hydra's Hangout, and that is a book based on mythological creatures, and I am going to talk about a vampire book because they're mythological creatures, right? I know they're more paranormal, but I think of them as mythological. This one is going to be the Morganville Vampire series. It is a young adult vampire series that centers around Claire, who walks into this town that is being run by vampires, but she has absolutely no idea that it is until she gets involved in the town a little bit more. And so the whole series, Claire is the main character on it, and then we meet Shane and Matthew, and I can't remember the other girl's name. But there's a lot of characters in this, a lot of vampires, and basically Claire is a 16-year-old girl who is very intelligent and she goes to college early in Texas, and that happens to be Morganville where this college is located, and it is not what you expect. And then she ends up working for Merlin. Things don't always go as planned. It's really good. I really enjoyed all of it. I've read the entire series, and I would love to continue reading more books in it. I wish that she would write more books. So the next prompt is going to be My Swamp, a book with a good looking cover, and for that I'm going to put on the screen here Meddling Kids. Now, I want to preface this by saying that I'm not saying that this book is a good book. I'm just saying it has a cool cover. I absolutely despised this book. It is kind of based off of a modern day Scooby-Doo type theme, but it's almost like Scooby-Doo grown up, or the kids from Scooby-Doo grown up. There's a dog, there's characters that fit the different original characters, and there's a mystery, and they're solving crimes the same way, but this is like after they've grown up, and kind of what happened to them after the band breaks up. It has LGBTQIA plus rep in it. There is a mythological creature in it. There is a mystery element to it, so it would fit several of these prompts. I cannot recommend it for any of them because it's not good. I didn't feel it was good, but the cover is really freaking cool. So alright, our next prompt is Under the Bed, a book by a Black or Indigenous author that you've been sleeping on. And for me, that is going to be Kit DeWall. She wrote the book My Name is Leon. She is a Black British author, and I really loved the way she told this story. Leon is a young boy who's is mixed race, and his mother is not doing so well. She's heavily depressed, and Leon is trying to take care of him, his mother, his newborn or young baby, infant baby brother. His baby brother is completely white. His mother is white. Leon's father is black, Nigerian, I believe. And then obviously his mother's depression gets the better of him, and they end up getting taken away into foster and put into foster care. With that, it is determined that his mother is not going to be able to ever recover and take care of them, at least not to the point where she can handle taking care of the kid. His little brother is adopted out, but because Leon is mixed race, he is not adoptable, is basically the story. And it's Leon is dealing with being in the foster care system and losing his brother and losing his mother, and kind of the trauma that takes place and how it affects Leon, and just kind of his story there. It is gut-wrenchingly heartbreaking. But again, Kit DeWall is an amazing writer. I really enjoyed the story. I liked her writing style, and I definitely think we're sleeping on her. The next prompt is The Secret Crypt. This is a book with a mystery element to it, and for that I'm going to talk about All Dressed in White by Mary Higgins Clark. This is an adult mystery. It's, I think, the third book in a series, but you don't have to read the other books to understand this book. There is enough backstory that is interwoven into this one to know kind of what's going on. The premise behind this is the main character in here, Amanda. She lost her husband a few years ago, and he was murdered, and the case went cold. And so what she has done is she has a syndicated TV show she has put together that they end up solving cold cases. They investigate, they get the original family members together, or friends, or whoever's around, and they take on these cold cases. They revisit the locations and try and solve the cold cases that other people can't, and they do it in a TV show format. So this story starts out with a bride who has left her husband, apparently left her husband at the altar. A few years later, the groom and the maid of honor end up married, and so there's some definite suspicion there. There's a huge cast of characters. The mother is convinced that her daughter did not leave at the altar and run away, with no word, that she wouldn't do that. So it was good. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I didn't realize who the culprit was until we got to the end. It wasn't super apparent, and through most of the story I kept going back and forth. Is it this person or is this person? The suspects kind of kept me on my toes, so I really enjoyed that aspect of it. The next prompt is The Secret Crypt. Nope, done that one. Your Friendly Neighbor's House. That is a book recommended to you by a friend, and for that I'm going to talk about Sadie by Courtney Summers. Sadie is one that, well, my usually in real life friends don't recommend books to me. It's just my YouTube, BookTube, Book Twitter friends where I get my book recommendations from. for the most part, and y'all are my friends, and everybody recommended Sadie. Everybody was talking about Sadie not too long ago. Definitely kind of creepy. I really highly recommend listening to this in the audiobook form. The audiobook is done as if it was a podcast. And the premise behind this book is that a popular podcast host is doing a series to try and find Sadie, who has gone missing shortly after her sister was found brutally murdered, and she thinks she knows who the killer is, and so she's going after the killer on her own. It's a heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching, horrible, and enthralling story. And the audiobook was fascinating because I felt like I was listening to a podcast. It was very detailed, very, down to the commercials that you would get in a podcast. It was all there. It was a good tale, twisting and turning, and this is actually told after the fact. Sadie's been missing for about a year, and so we're going through this after the investigations and everything happens to find Sadie and what happened to Sadie. I do highly recommend, if you are someone that needs content warnings, to look content warnings up for this. But this is just a good example of how monsters come in all shapes and sizes, and they're not always just the boogeyman or the monsters hiding under our beds. So the next prompt is a moment of peace, and that's for a comfort read. And so I am very much, I've talked about it before, a paranormal romance fan. Those are kind of my go-to comfort reads. I love a good shapeshifter. I love a good vampire. Not really into zombies, but shapeshifters and vampires are my deal. So this series that I'm going to recommend is my upstairs neighbors just flushed their toilet. It's loud as fuck. So they where was I? Okay. The series I want to recommend is the Danica Dark series, the 7-year series. This is it's a shapeshifter romance. It is so fascinating. There is definitely adult sexy time in this book. Definitely. You know, it's an adult paranormal romance. Let's just put that out there. And it involves the werewolves. So our first book follows our main character, and I can't think of her name right now, but she is not aware that she is a shapeshifter. She has no idea. But her old high school, her brother, I think brother's best friend, there's a connection there. She doesn't know he's a shapeshifter either, but it turns out he is, and she is also a shapeshifter but doesn't know it and just hasn't gone through the changes yet. So this is kind of their story, how they get together, and he also happens to be the leader of a pack, and so that those dynamics come into play as well. I really enjoy this. I devoured this series, and not a lot of people talk about it. You know, there's a lot of shapeshifter stories out there, paranormal romances with vampires and stuff, but Danica Dark series isn't one that I've heard a lot about. The next prompt is Area 51, a book involving aliens or mutants. And for that, I'm going to recommend Awakened by James Murray. So James Murray is on Impractical Jokers, but he wrote a book. Actually, he's written a series. This is a 3-book series, and this is the first. This is the first book in the series. So our main character here is the mayor of New York, and they have they have built this state-of-the-art subway system. It goes under the Hudson River and connects New Jersey to Manhattan. And so this is the inaugural run. It's a short, few-minute run. Everybody's on standby to test this run. The mayor puts his wife at one end, and he is actually waiting with all the news and press conferences and all the big wigs and I think the president of the United States, and they're all on the platform underground at the first stop, under the Hudson River. And so when the train leaves the station in New Jersey and hits the platform, once it hits there, it's only like 15 minutes, 10-15 minutes, and when they get there, everybody on the train is dead and it is covered in blood, and they don't know what's going on. It turns out that there are mutants that have been living underground, underneath the oceans and in like mountains and things like that, and they've always been there, but they haven't been. It was more like they were trapped. But building the subway let pockets out and opened up holes into so that they could breach from their nests into the human world. And apparently these pockets of these mutants are all over the United States and, well, all over the earth. They can be found in lots of different places. But it kind of goes from that, starting out with finding the train with everybody dead, and also having to get everybody out safely without them being eaten by these mutants. It is a wild ride. It's considered sci-fi horror, and I'm not a horror person. I don't do scary. Okay, I don't do scary. I loved this book. I couldn't hardly put it down, and I haven't been able to read the next in the series yet, but it is on my list to do. I definitely want to continue on with this series. The next prompt is The Rearview Mirror, a book published 5 years ago, or an indie book. And for that, I want to talk about another paranormal romance series, and that's the Dark Hunter series by Sherilyn Kenyon. This series is so good. The very first book is a little bit graphic. There's definitely adult sexy time in these books, but once you get past that first book, that first book doesn't even really feel like it's connected fully to the other series. But basically these are vampires, but not in the same sense that we think of them as vampires. They are, Artemis makes these types of immortals, and they don't feed off of anything. They're almost godlike. They're not godlike creatures, but they're immortals, and so created by Artemis. And they were people that died, but didn't get to exact the revenge for something else. Most of them have very tragic backstories, and so Artemis makes them immortal, brings them kind of back to life as immortals, so that they can get their revenge for whatever happened. Wife and kid were murdered, usually something like that. And in exchange for that, they have to fight the daemons that are in New Orleans. I'm assuming these daemons are probably in other parts of the world too, or the United States, but this story takes place in New Orleans. That's the focus, the center of it. It is paranormal romance, so each one of these characters does get kind of a love story in there, and there are shapeshifters, there's the vampire immortals, there are the demons or daemons, and it takes place in New Orleans. So, I mean, it's New Orleans too, so it's a great backdrop for this kind of story. I highly recommend it if that sounds interesting. So the next prompt is the Upside Down, which is a retelling, and for that we're going to talk about The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Audier. This is a retelling of 1001 Nights, which is, but the basic premise is our main character Khalid is a caliph, and each night he takes a new wife, and in the morning she is found dead. And then one of those, the female main character in here is Shaz, and she basically volunteers to be one of his wives because she, her best friend cousin was one that was previously picked and ended up being murdered. As you can imagine, or if you know the story of 1001 Nights, she is trying to survive to kill Khalid because he's a monster, and he's, this huge serial killer. And of course there is more to the story than what everybody knows. And so 1001 Nights retelling, and it's a dark and twisty one. Murder, mayhem, love, lust, all the good stuff. So I really enjoyed this one. It's probably one of my favorite duologies. And we're here at the final prompt, and that is The Bunker, and that's a book with disability or deaf rep. And this one is not going to be a scary, monstery book, but it's the only one that I know of off the top of my head with that kind of, with either deaf or disability rep. I know I've read more. I just can't think of any of them right now. But that is going to be Your Welcome Universe by Whitney Gardner, and this follows a deaf main character who is trying to integrate into a normal functioning school, not one that is deaf, that caters to deaf students. So mainstream school, that's what it's called, not normal, mainstream school. And so through her frustration, one way she expresses herself is through her artwork, and she does graffiti and tags buildings. And it was a good, interesting story. I think I gave it 3 stars. I don't know if the rep is good. I am not deaf, so I can't speak to the rep for it. I enjoyed the story. It's a YA contemporary novel, and the main character is deaf. So there you have it. Okay, guys, so here is some of the books that I have talked about. See if I can get them in a better order. Books that I've talked about in this tag, which also would lend good to being recommendations for the Monsterathon prompts. If you are participating in it, then you have some recommendations if you're stuck on a prompt. Let me know in the comments below what books you would recommend for some of these prompts, and let me know if you've read any of these that I've talked about, especially the Sandcastle Empire. Have you read that? Am I the only one in BookTube land that has read the Sandcastle Empire? So let me know if you're participating in Monsterathon as well. And with that, that's the end of this tag. So if you've enjoyed this video, you guys know what to do. Give me a thumbs up over there. If you didn't, or if you hate tag videos, or if you think I just suck in general, go ahead and hit that thumbs down button. I'm perfectly okay with that. But be sure and leave me a comment of some kind down below, and hit that big red subscribe button so you don't miss future videos by me. And so what you're going to see on the screen now is going to be some of my other tag videos that I've done, and also a video that YouTube recommends for you that they think that you will enjoy. So I hope they picked out a good one for you. And until next time, I will talk to you later, and thanks for watching. Bye.